Okay, there's been a switch in the panel. So Kashaka Jeremiah is going to take over as the chair of this round. Wishing our teams the best of luck.
Okay. With that said, is closing government on the call, just final confirmation so we can begin the debate. Is closing government on the call?
She's here.
Okay, perfect. Now we can begin. With that said, and without wasting too much time, I would now like to welcome the Prime Minister to begin the debate.
Am I audible? Yeah, sorry.
Yes, you're audible.
So I'll check my POI. That space. Shout out to my friends and to Henry. I think he's in CEO. Yeah. So I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, a religion, unlike a political movement, a political party, or any public campaign, has values that are dear to it and may not necessarily change according to the times that it is actually working in. To that extent, which has infiltrated secular the Christian holidays. And we're going to give you reasons why we feel this house as the Christian community should be created. First and foremost, we are going to show you what values are dear to the Christian community and what values are what are the values upon which some of these particular religious celebrations are actually held. Second thing, we are going to show you why these values are actually important to this particular religious groups or like to the Christian community. And thirdly, why we think the perversion of this particular Christian holidays is actually having a very detrimental effect on or a detrimental effect on the church or on the Christians themselves. So first, let's look some characterization. Right. So this motion particularly suggests that the Christian community feels a particular level of disappointment or dissatisfaction with the way Christian holidays are actually being held against the notion that they must particularly follow like their origins according to what they are particularly brought about, right? And now the pervasiveness of the Christian holidays in the secular culture basically is that we have seen an infiltration of secular culture and secular deeds into how these particular Christian holidays are celebrated. To that extent, for example, the Christmas that is celebrated by Christmas to celebrate the birth of Jesus has now turned out to be a gift-giving celebration, festive decorations, and gatherings of family members. We forget the real goal of this Christmas. And then secondly, the Easter celebration, which actually meant to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and it has a significant impact or it has a relevance in the Christian church, has now turned into a festival where people celebrate by painting eggs, getting rabbits, and eating food. To that extent, we feel that it is actually regrettable. But first of all, what are some of the values of this particular religious festivals? One of the first thing we told you about was the Christian celebration of Christmas that is meant to celebrate the birth of Jesus. According to religion, this particular birth of Jesus like marks the time when we were free from all those sins, like when he came, the birth of the Savior, because he came to save, like to, according to the teachings, he came to save like all sinners. But then the Easter celebration is meant to celebrate that period when all the sins of the Christians were taken on the cross, and then this particular sins, this particular sins were buried with Jesus' death, and then the resurrection is a new life from this particular one, right? But why do we think like this particular? Why do we think these particular values are so important? Not that these religions do not particularly exist without these particular values. So it's important for them to particularly celebrate these particular holidays in the way they are meant to celebrate without misrepresenting like what they actually stand for. Because notice from my characterization, this particular religious celebration or holidays have been misrepresented from what is meant to be a celebration of how Christ died on the cross for our sins, becoming into an egg-giving thing. So they do not have a particular religious attachment. But second thing, we think that this particular religious holidays have been accepted in popular society because of what they stand for, to the extent that they have been like made public holidays in many places. In the place they lose actually that thing they are meant to particularly stand for. For example, what they actually celebrate, like what they celebrate them for, these particular public holidays or the celebration of this particular event may actually not be necessary, right? So, why do we think this is problematic? First of all, we regret this particular motion first because the harms of it outweigh the benefits. Secondly, it's against the entire goals of the Christian faith, and then thirdly, the harms once they happen, they actually irreparable. What did we tell you are the goals of this particular religious faith? First, we tell you that we're meant to celebrate important events in the Christian faith to which people have sort of an attachment to the extent that they no longer represent some of the values that they are meant to stand for. Then we should actually regret them because they are being bastardized to represent what political society must actually think. There is some sort of political correctness. Notice that in my first statement, I told you that the religion is not a political campaign, it is not a political party. For any social movement that must be subject to political correctness, but it must remain firm on the values that it actually stands for, right? But we think OO is actually going to argue that, you know what, religion must be subjective to what people think, and there's going to be a bigger buy because some of these things mean a lot to them. But we know that this is actually not like justifiable because religion as it is must be followed according to how it must be followed. But second thing, we think that when religion is actually religious holidays actually celebrated in this particular secular way, we think there is going to be sort of like a back. There's not going to be legitimacy in society. Not that these particular religions are only legitimate because of I will take you.
Yeah, thank you. So two things. Do you think Christians still celebrate the religions in the same way? And second, is secular culture open to religions in general?
Thank you very much. Understand that OO is going to argue that some of the values that are celebrated by secular culture are similar to what is actually celebrated in this particular religion. And then secondly, they think like people should be allowed to celebrate differently. But notice we are not saying that people should not celebrate that way. But we think that the celebration of this particular religious holidays in a way that is against like some of the particular notions or a misrepresentation of what these particular values actually stand for, or like these particular holidays stand for, is problematic. Why is it problematic? First of all, it deprives the whole Christian community of legitimacy. We think that the Christian community gains its legitimacy from how well it observes its particular like religious beliefs and values and how it upholds them. To the extent that it no longer upholds this particular religious belief, then it's actually not going to be legitimate to the eyes of society. And why is this particularly problematic? Firstly, we think that these religions, like the Christian religion, is one of the many religions that actually exist. To that extent, this is how it operates. It must be able to appeal to very, very many members of society. Notice that society has very many conservative people, right? People who want to follow the rules to the dot. To the extent that you do not allow these people, like these people do not see you following the rules as you actually must follow them, then you're not going to win over them. But second thing, I think there is actually going to be there is going to be sort of a backlash from your very people that are actually wanting the conservative Christians that want you to celebrate those days according to that how they must be. To the extent that there may be a movement that can actually want these days to be scrapped off because they are now a misrepresentation of what should actually be celebrated. Not just panel, that we are not saying that all like the pervasive, like the secular culture is bad, but we think that this secular culture is bad because it is a misrepresentation of what these particular religions should necessarily stand for, of what these particular Christian holidays are meant to be, in a way, like how they are actually meant to be celebrated. We've told you about Easter that has become an egg painting to the extent that they sort of lose legitimacy. And even when they may be able to buy into like very many people in society, attract more people to join the Christian faith, and will be forced to join other religions that may stick to their goals and ambitions.
The panel would like to thank the Prime Minister for his speech. I would now like to welcome the Leader of Opposition, bring forth their case. Here.
Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's a bit muffled, but I can hear you.
Okay. Lily and someone just 1 minute.
Could you try reconnecting real quick? Because I think I'm going to foresee some connection issues because I can hear you, but it's still muffled. Try speaking again. Felix, kindly mute. Felix, kindly mute.
Right now, you can't more audible.
Hold on, first say that again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. I think I can be able to hear you. Let me just put on some earphones and you'll be fine. Okay, Trudeau, I think you can try and begin your speech. Is he speaking?
Start in. Wait, is someone talking?
Yeah. No, it's fine, Trudeau. Were you trying to start your speech? Yeah, I can't hear him either. Kiragu, are you guys in the same location? Maybe he tries using your device because we're struggling to hear him.
No, he's actually in a very difficult location. We are not together.
Okay.
I think
Well,
maybe we could give him some time to relocate and see if we can get better connection.
Is it much better? Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's slightly better, I would say. First, speak again.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can work with this. It's fine. Yeah. I can work with this. You can begin your speech.
Um, okay, so I'll start in 3, 2. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Panel, I think there's a clear misunderstanding of what the idea around pervasiveness means from opening government. They seem to perceive the idea of pervasiveness as being that secular culture will necessarily interfere with the idea of religions in of themselves rather than the other way around. We think the most accurate interpretation of what the motion demands of us is that secular religious Christian religious holidays necessarily are much more dominant in society and they are much more dominant in secular life. We are okay as towards accepting any arguments of commercialization insofar as we put the priorities of the actor in this debate and insofar as they're able to much more proselytize and much more increase the amount of people that are able to buy into those religions, whether it's just culturally or spiritually in the sense of the motion in and of itself. Two things then in my speech before we start. One, why we think the alternative will be much worse in our world. You need to understand that secular culture is necessarily hostile to religions, all religions, not necessarily Christian religions alone, but secular culture is necessarily hostile to religions in and of themselves. We think then the delta in our case when these Christian holidays become more pervasive in society is that they are able to persuade more people to be able to join these religions and to necessarily shift the hostilities of people who are necessarily hostile to religions to become less and less hostile to them. We think this is necessarily important insofar as you're able to improve the growth of those religions and you're able to show people that there's some mutual value in them. Even if these people are only able to benefit from having a public holiday like Easter or something like that, they're still able to benefit from having that religion have some sense of utility to them insofar as the world is concerned with that. We think this is uniquely an important debate where you must prioritize the ability of the actor to be able to gain more people into those religions and to be able to retain more people in those religions. Any other proposition from government as necessarily diluting the image and the values of these religions are not irrelevant insofar as they don't prove how that is necessarily harming the religions themselves. We think we're able to accept our world as it is today. Two things then in my speech. One, the universal applications of human dignity and how these religions are able to push those towards even people who believe in secularism, and therefore they're able to get buy-in towards other people in society. Second thing I'm going to address in this religion is the second thing I'm going to address in this motion is the utile nature of these religions and those Christian holidays specifically to be able to attract more members in society. You need to understand that for religions, there must be a certain acceptability and relevance in society for them to be able to be accepted in society and for those religions to be able to get people who can buy into those religions and who can follow those religions keenly and spiritually to that effect. We think then the ability of these holidays to become pervasive in society means then that people can get to understand and be socialized into accepting certain norms in society. So people can accept that Christmas is necessarily a good thing in society, insofar as these religions are able to push their ability and their conceptions of what is reality to other people, because these people believe that their conceptions of what is reality is good for them. We don't think it's necessarily a harm when you think something is good for you and you want to spread this message to other people, and we think that's necessarily beneficial on our world. I think then that life becomes better for Christians in as a whole is necessary for those religions because they're able to push religions to other people, and therefore they are able to attain those three significant benefits of it. One, that sense of meaning and purpose and being able to push this towards other people in society becomes significantly more important in the debate, because now these people are able to say to other people, I have a sense of meaning and purpose in my life. I want you to have that sense of meaning and purpose in life. And that leads me to the second impact, that sense of community that necessarily comes as a result of these religious holidays and these religious institutions of Christianity necessarily gives people a sense of community, insofar as they are able to distribute food to other people who are less likely to in society to have things in society. Insofar as they are able to co-opt organizations like non-governmental organizations and third-party actors like community organizations to be able to distribute food and gifts to other people who may not lack these people. We think then this Christianity will necessarily get the buy-in of people who are in a secular world when these people know that these religious holidays necessarily have some utility for them, even if it may be the material utility that we get from of having that religion in our world, because now we're able to push that experience to other people in the secular world. The third thing then is the capacity to gain new members become much more likely and much more increased, because the pervasiveness means that this thing becomes a dominant narrative, and these holidays are much more appreciated in society because people are socialized to accept them as good things in society. Second thing, on the principle of it all and the ability of universal themes of human dignity, we think Christianity as a whole necessarily wants to pursue certain themes and certain abilities to be able to proselytize and push people towards believing those things. We think then those values of community and human dignity are much more likely to be pushed towards through these Christian holidays that are propagated in the secular world. We think then inherently religions are likely to value this spread insofar as they can push this through media narratives or through that commercialization that they can put through. We think then this is necessarily important because one, they're able to drive social change by initiating things that people value, like public holidays, and being able to be aids and using their platform as a religion to spread in secular life, and therefore you're able to crucially then the impact of
that stay within Christianity and the people that buy into it because of the truth of their values, because of the end goal, because they believe there are things like heaven and hell, and they have to act according to certain principles. So our buy-in is better. Yes, it brings few people, but these people come because they know what they're getting into. And when they go into that religion, they are built and can stay there, unlike the kind of world that they give us at the end of the day. We should understand, dear panel, that our burden as government is not to prove to you what extent this harm has, but to prove to you that there is an extent of harm on the Christianity itself as a religion if we vulgarize and we get all these holidays and treat them a certain way, because we have shown you that one, they have a certain truth in them, and that truth is what calls a certain people to belong. If they come and argue choice from any opposition bench, we should be able to note that in religion, choice is limited and choice is compromised. And this choice lies outside for you to choose whether you should subscribe or not subscribe to a certain religion. But once you subscribe to a religion, then you should take up what it believes in. I've never been prouder to propose.
Okay, I'd like to thank the speaker for her speech. Speakers, please keep an eye on the timer in the chat. I'll now like to welcome the final speaker of the opening half. Dear Lawyer, welcome to the floor.
I hope I'm clearly audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
All right. I'll take POIs in chat. Hopefully I can take a point from closing, as we haven't heard anything from them. Just a second. So before I start my speech, I would like to thank my partner. They gave a speech from a very compromised position. So thank you very much. All right. Then I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. We think OG fundamentally misses the kinds of impact that we talk about, because their best case is about how the secular community enjoying things like Christmas, getting to necessarily have holidays like Easter, where for some reason, like the US, they do Easter Bunny, which like it's not only where Easter is celebrated, like you still have the rest of the world, which I think is probably more people. So I think that cannot be the only like relevant given. But the idea is that necessarily because there exist such people, that Christianity in of itself is vulgarized. We really do not buy into this, because there is very clear weighing here, and this is what we think takes OG out. It's a very simple question. Whose culture is absorbing the other? Are Christians being more secular? Are Christians now deciding, I am a Christian and I believe in Jesus, wants to hide the Easter eggs? Or is it that the people who are previously not in church, people who do not relate and engage with the church, are they the ones engaging in this behavior? And to the extent still actively religion, still doing things like going for the way of the cross, having sacraments, and engaging in religious crusades, we still think this is very fundamental, and it necessarily shows that Christians in of themselves are not being forced to change how they perceive their own religion. And that is like really most part of what OG is trying to run. But we think that part of the delta that is important, and the part when the to the reception, it is that of the religion. And like have some sort of level of belief and around the religion. They would all want their public holiday, their holidays within the religion to be public and fundamental holidays, but they do not have access to this. To the extent that Christians, the narrative of Christians is being so pervasive that necessarily it is necessarily a worldwide holiday. We think it's an extremely unique benefit that is not accessed when there is no interaction between these two, and there is no level of like a level of common platform between these kinds of people. To physical representations of their religion, this is something that is valuable for them. They're able to see real huge commercial market for Catholics and other Christians and then sadly, only what we think is necessarily the lives of Christians are necessarily better in our world, that they get a more appreciative and friendlier environment. But we not only talk to you about this, but we talk to you about the nature of a common ground and a platform of engagement between individuals who do not share beliefs on kind of similar basis. On one side, you have people who believe in a religion, and on the other side, you have people who simply claim that the religion is not even a thing and it's made up hula balloon. The fact that they can engage with these holidays on a similar platform, we think is valuable. OG correctly cited how we think the spreading of yet people who are outside of their religion to be celebrating this kind of thing, and suddenly think about how one of the most core ideas within within Christianity is love your neighbor as you love yourself. To the extent that you necessarily are able to push people to think about individuals who are outside of themselves and they're not individualistic centered, we think that second is normal. It means that if with religion is to occur, individuals are more likely to move to more familiar grounds and more relatable grounds in a very unique nature. This can be analyzed through proximity. Ideas of Christianity as more things that are more normalized, and it is proximal to secular concepts and more pervasive in these kinds of things. It means if there is anywhere to go if you're not secular, it would mean you're going towards religion. Is there something from CG? Okay, moving on. Why we think they're counterfactual on their side is worse, because we think there's greater difference among religions and secularists. It means there's less appreciation or capacity for dialogue or capacity for religious people to impose their perception of reality. We should take to rest and sadly appreciate the death of our savior. We think that those things are not accessible, and we think that they are less acceptable, and they never get those unique impacts. We think for Christians, they necessarily are more rejected, and their religion lives in a world of more oppression. Compare this to the thousands of religions that exist. Those religions do not get their holidays as being part of basic reality. To the extent that that is what we think happens when this kind of perception is not perverse, we think it is a worse kind of reality. And that necessarily means that our side is necessarily better. To the extent that buying, we talked to you about proximity. Point. Thank you. Alex, shoot. Alex, 3. Alex, I'm taking your point. Okay, I really cannot hear you, so I will proceed. Then notice the piece of framing that my partner started with. We think religion exists in a very in a secular world that is very hostile to these kinds of things. It means that religious practices are things that are challenged and not found to be legitimate. To the extent that we are creating a sort of difference, and like creating for them a boundary in which they can engage with individuals, we think it is something that is valuable. We think to the extent that religion finds itself in situations where the perceptions of religions are dissimilar with reality, it is valuable for them to be accepted and in reality and religion to change, for reality to change how this thing is. It is uniquely difficult for religions to succeed in a secular world that is hostile towards them. That is why it is uniquely beneficial for these things to be perverse and to be perceived as like the basic understanding of these kinds of things. To the extent that there's a huge commercial market for these things, to the extent that it is more acceptable and creates situations of more understanding between these kinds of things, we are able to value it. We think the pervasiveness of Christian holidays within a secular culture uniquely is something that is valuable and allows that individuals who exist within this Christian religion to have a better life for themselves. To the extent, the worst case scenario is that even these people never change and join your religion. But to the extent that Christians are still able to access a physical representation of the world, to the extent that the world actively changes to appear more Christian, to produce more crosses, and to provide holidays, it means Christians have a good day. Fulfill the burden, proud to oppose.
Interesting opening half. I'd like to welcome a member of government to introduce CG's case. Here. Tiwa.
That's everybody at UIDLC. Farhan. Oh, yeah, I'll take a PR in the text space. Please don't unmute in the middle of my speech. Okay, so I'm going to start right now. People do not subscribe to religion because of secularism. People subscribe to religion due to the thoughts of having a higher power and having a connection to that higher power. Keep this clarity in mind as it has been, keep religion ideological consistency from OG and buy-in from OO. We are going to achieve both impact on our side of the world and therefore win the debate. But I think it also has to be clear, right, what the secularization means. It looks like having things like Christmas parties, having people getting drunk on New Year's Eve, and then on the fact that according to statistics, accidents actually happen more on these particular Christian holidays because a lot of people are drinking and a lot of people are driving and therefore having more accidents. It also looks like it's been propagated with a very strong influence of the media. Looks like the media propagating Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and it looks like the media propagating money, these particular parties and this secularization of it. What it means is that I don't agree with open opposition when they say, you have to get buy-in from this, because on our world, you're still able to get buy-in, which I'll explain more. But also the way that it is supposed to be practiced according to the Bible is one that is still very appealing. Like when they talk about things like, charity, I mean, charity is like one of the number one things in the Bible, according that's without secularizing it. It looks like the Catholic Church being the biggest producer of charity in the entire world, thereby still getting buy-in and still having people like us or whatever opinion position is saying without secularizing it with Christmas parties and Easter bunnies and whatnot that we don't think are supposed to be important. But it also exists in the context of a very irreligious world right now, because statistics, individuals are getting more religious and subscribing more to atheism. We are going to connect this to why we should particularly regret this phenomenon. First of all, we think like this is an incentive to intermix secularization and Christianity. What it means is that what I said at the beginning of my speech, the reason why individuals opt into religion is to have connection to higher power, meaning that you lose the appeal for individuals to opt into religion when you make religion and secularization one and the same, right? Because at the end of the day, it means that the value to opt into religion becomes lost. It also looks like the fact that the secularization has like a stronger impact due to the backing of the media and stuff like that. Meaning that individuals are more likely to lean into the secularization and lean into the fun aspects of this particular secularization. Meaning that it becomes extremely difficult to propagate religion, because at the end of the day, people are more likely to lean into the fun aspect, and there's no value to even join religion because it's what's the difference between religion and being secular. It also means that at the end of the day, you give like authorities to people that are secular to propagate what religion means. So instead of people going to learn about Christ at Christmas carols, people are hearing what Christmas is supposed to be at Christmas parties for master of celebrations who are not religious authorities. Meaning that, as I said, value is lost, but also what the religion means is also more likely to be lost. What it means is that you're more likely to lose members and you don't get buy-in. But also, people are not likely to opt into your religion, because what is the use since I'm not having the connection to a higher power? We therefore regret that. But thirdly, in this debate, I think like what it's going to lead to is going to lead to denominational clash, and this is also a very important impact in this debate. We think that what it does is that it changes the value of religion to how secular we should go, and not how do we worship Jesus, right? Because leading to denominational clash, because the only agreement right now in Christianity is that, Jesus is Lord, Jesus is the Son of God. What you do when you secularize the religion, it continually be becomes a dominational clash on how secular we should go. It looks like Jehovah Witness saying, oh, having celebrating Christmas is bad in all forms because of see what the world has done with it. Or Catholic saying, oh, the LGBT might be okay, but then the other Pentecostals and Anglicans are saying, no, LGBT is not okay. Meaning that we lose the value of having important discussions within Christianity to how far should we go and how secular is really enough. Meaning that you create factions internally within the religion, and therefore that is like particularly bad. What it also means is that it leads to denominational clashes, and at the end of the day, denominations are trying to be more superior than the other because they feel like they have the right aspect of secularity and the right aspect of respectability politics in their own denomination. We think that is one that is particularly regrettable. The reason why this is bad is that you don't get any sustainability that old argues, or you don't get buy-in, because even the current members you have, you lose that internal buy-in, we think, and you just promote discord within the religion. But fourthly in this debate, the impact on the future generation, right? That's future sustainability. We think that what you do is that you fictionalize Christianity, meaning that children don't know the difference between, is this just another holiday story, or Jesus is also another holiday story. This is increasingly problematic, especially when you take into context of living in an increasingly atheist world, meaning that the world is already opting out of religion, and then we continually to fictionalize it, meaning that apart from the loss of value into this religion, but also there's a loss of interest because you're not able to learn the correct one, and Jesus just becomes another piece of fiction. We don't think that that is good in this debate. But fifthly in this debate, I think like what you do is that you put Christian parents in a dilemma, right? Because they either have to choose two choices. Either they have to lie and desecrate their religion and allow their children participate in these secular things, or they exclude their children, leading to backlash on parents and the children. Why is this true? Because as I told you, there's a strong influence of the media and a strong influence of secularization. What this means is that Christian parents have to actually either choose to let them participate or exclude them, leading that if you exclude these children, it means that they get backlash from the world, get backlash from their peers, and then they continually even opt out of religion because they feel that, I have to be forced and I'm excluded from not behaving like my peers. But it also means that if you allow them to participate in this secular world, you allow them to be taught what it means to be a Christian by secular individuals, not the value of the Bible, meaning that you become a bad Christian because you're not passing down the value of Christianity or the value of Christianity to your future generations, and that is one that is particularly bad. We think that is a dilemma in child and parent relationship that we don't want to promote on our side of the world. But also the long-term impact then is that you shift the actual discourse from Christ, right? Because as I said, at the end of the day, individuals are less likely to understand what Christianity actually stands for, and it shifted to actually having fun and having Christmas parties. The focus, meaning that we lose the focus in the actual meaningful things in Christianity and lose discourse on actual on Christ. The reason why this is bad is that you're less likely going to imbibe Christian values, but you're less likely going to get understanding of even Christian values among the world, meaning that you don't get the value of evangelism that OO argues for, but also you don't get the value of ideological consistency we win.
I would like to thank the member of government for her speech. I would now like to welcome the member of opposition. Okay.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you. Just let me set up my background. Okay, it's okay. It's okay, yeah, thanks. I'm coming, guys. I'm coming, just give me. All right, cool. So, hi everyone. My name is Dominic Stanley-Marcus, and I'll be the member of opposition for this round. Is there a shout out? Okay, shout out to my partner, and we keep growing, just keep growing. Yeah, so let's go. Starting my speech. Okay, POI is exclusively in the chat space. Okay, you can unmute from the 5th minute. Space. Hello guys, am I audible? You can just unmute in case your tech. Jesus. Hello guys, am I audible now?
Audible, it's just that sometimes you just drop off.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
read the motion.
Yeah, exactly. My
Just read the
network is really bad, like really, really bad. I don't know what's happened to River State. I mean to meet bad network. Let me switch again to M10 maybe. Okay, so I'm reading the motion now. This house as the Christian community regrets the pervasiveness of Christian holidays in secular
It's extremely clear.
culture.
Let's
How
hope
is
it's
that?
comes that way.
Yeah, I pray to. Oh, MTN. Okay, cool. Can you shut that door a bit? Just close it. Just close it a bit, all right? Aha, thank you. Okay, cool. So let's go. Pure eyes again in chat space, and let's have fun. Starting my speech in 3, 2, let's go. If opening government wants to achieve a world where you totally shut people out of intercepting Christian ideologies or probably doctrine, as the case may be, I think for them to achieve that utopian world, they need to cheese from disconnect speakers that you connect outside simply because you want people to hear your messages, even if they won't enter into those particular churches. But the reasons why they won't do that is because they will be violating the core principle that religion in itself preaches, which says, go into the world and preach the gospel. In a world where I show you how even these particular infiltrations allow them to fulfill that core objective, we win this debate from closing opposition. Let's go to a couple of, I'll just have 3 things to discuss to you with a lot of impact. Most likely rebuttals will be integrated, or my partner will deal with rebuttal exclusively. Just 3 cases, taglines. Number 1 is the nature of society and the philosophy of cultural device. Number 2 is the characterization of Christian community in itself, something that no state has necessarily done, and the impact of this particular holiday, as the case may be, the significance of this holiday, and the importance of the secularistic society within this particular discourse. These are the lectures you're going to be getting from closing opposition. Let's go to our first case, which is the nature of society and the philosophy of cultural device. Notice that every society exists on the platform of multi-ethnicity, multicultural diverse, and multi-ideological disparity, as the case may be. It comprises of different people that belong to the same religious ideologies and different people that also do not necessarily subscribe to those particular ideology. The impact of this characterization is simple. 2 things here. Number 1, it is both Christian community share one government and most likely share the same political and state reality in terms of one problem, one solution. They have the same collective ideologies and the same collective needs, as the case may be. Why is this important? We think that there is a need to the principle of tolerance, which is one of the key pillars of Christian community. 3 reasons based. Number 1, because the existence of the secularistic society itself is for more buy-in in terms of for it to push for ideal policies for collective goods, which means when society comes together to vote out a particular bad good or voting a good government, they don't do that on religious ground. All of us, both non-religious blocs that exist, agree that because of the appraisal and the acceptance of common problems, in order for them to push for common solution as the case may be. Impact. When you definitely regret, it most likely means that you take active actions that either passively or actively shows that you're trying to exclude people from observing your holiday simply because you think they exist directly adulterate the core principle that you put in your work. It most likely means that you increase the propensity for you to lose buy-ins that section of society, most importantly, their intersection as well as interrogation is also needed to other political rights and state functionalities that you cannot alone achieve as a Christian community based on the idea of numbers as the case may be. The second impact, again, it most likely means that as a people is also needed. Why? Because it is a religious machinery through which you test your growth or the growth of your faith, and then you also amplify the possibility of your evangelism. Before I can go into the society and preach the gospel, there is a need for me to exercise some level of tolerance, and those particular tolerance will come at a point of compromise in terms of sacrifices to an extent where I can tolerate those people that do not necessarily share the same principles or understanding of my ideologies, and also how my existence most likely infiltrates their well-being or probably their welfareism in itself. Structure on opening government and closing government. When you actively regret, it most likely means you are not a good Christian as the case may be. Why? Because the principle of tolerance definitely allows you to coexist within that particular society because of the knowledgeable functions of the Christian community in most instances preaches, and because you also need that particular entrance for. It definitely flips opening opposition's idea of, oh, we need these guys, we need these particular holidays because we want to use it to preach. We have shown you from closing opposition in terms of mechanization why tolerance necessarily comes first before your evangelism can necessarily be. So if opening government and closing government talks about buy-ins, we think this is one principle that they cannot necessarily impact. Impact on our first case definitely means that there exists the existence of not just the undeniable but vital interconnectivity between the Christian community and the world in itself is something that you cannot necessarily do without. This particular holiday in terms of experiential value that in most instances bind you together for you to achieve those particular political and societal objectives, since you all live in the same geographic Christian communities, and the impact on this particular holiday thing. And I want panel to listen. This is a particular nuance, no particular have engaged in this. Notice, it says Christian communities. So we need to collective characteristics that the Christian community in their personal existence, that they don't belong to the same ideological blocks. The only belief they share is the existence and the supremacy of Jesus Christ. The message of love. It means that the cultural and the ideological divide that exists within them directly makes them to prefer different scriptural doctrines, which definitely does not have unification. In this debate, as an act, before you can instrumentalize your regret in order to achieve all of the core objectives that opening government and closing government talks about, there is a need for you to leverage on the internal unification in your community in order for you to have a better chance of the outcome you're trying to. When you don't have that, firstly, there are two stronger problems you create. Number one, when you definitely regret, it most likely means that you need to have some level of internal consensus on this particular way to go. Because they don't belong to the same ideology, you create more divisions within Christian communities. Why? Because there are different Christian blocks that will still want the pagans or the non-Christians to experience or probably to participate in the holiday. Why? Because that is the only machineries at which they reach out. When you definitely actively regret, it most likely means that you push some policies or take some sort of actions that directly cut these people out. There are two problems with it. Number one, you are at war with your fellow Christian brother, and secondly, you are at war with the with the secularistic world in itself. We think to create more chaotic in the larger society and also in the Christian community in itself. Your legitimacy as an actor definitely is out here. Let's go to the third case: the significance of this particular holiday and why the existence of secular society invitation is better. Opening government tells you that they need legitimacy. The legitimacy that exists currently is that state is able to declare holidays for you in terms of Easter, Christmas, and all that. We don't know more legitimacy you need. But the reasons why you lose that particular legitimacy is that the existence of these particular secularistic organizations is the reason why you can constantly hold on to your particular member in order for them to hold on to the ideals of Christian principles, even at the face of infiltrations. For example, the hashtag Jesus is the reason for the season is a continuous what's called doctrinal push out to make Christians to hold on to the faith and also spread the particular narrative to this particular secularistic society that this is the reasons why we are celebrating. So while they are busy drinking at the club, your Christians are constantly being fed with this your Christians are currently being fed with the core ideologies of tolerance and love and the essentiality of your celebration, while you also fulfill the banner of love, which is something that most likely holds you bound within the particular society. It is only in our side of the house that we don't necessarily lose those particular vote buy-ins in terms of pushing for common policies that collectively benefit all and also cause more internal problems within Christian community and largely allows for progressivity of the nature of society in itself. This is why closing opposition especially wins this particular debate we have ever been so proud to oppose the gospel.
I'd like to thank the speaker for his speech. I'd like to welcome the government whip to close off the case of closing government. Here.
Audible.
You well.
All right, thanks. I'll be taking PRs in the text space exclusively. I'll prioritize getting from opening, but yeah, anybody that has as my 5th minute. But again, just text space. If you unmute, we'll have problem. I don't really think shout outs are the most necessary, but I guess to UILDC and to the generality of the debate circuit for what has been a very fun ride. While I'm constantly, or at least right now, negotiating whether or not debating something I'll be doing long term, it has been a fun experience nonetheless. All right, so my timer is there. I realize, Kimani, I realized. So my timer is there. I will be starting in 3, 2, 1. I think the funny thing about CO is that CO entirely takes up everything that OO has says, but puts it under tolerance. So let's deal with them first and why they're relevant in this debate. 1, we don't necessarily think you need to be part of something for you to be tolerant of it. The best example is that apart from the fact that we are in the period that is Easter, there is also another religious festival, another religious period that is going on now, Ramadan of the Islamic faith. It means it is very possible for people to observe and recognize that you are having a religious period without them necessarily opting into this thing. And it is very possible for you to have your own religious period without necessarily secularizing to the extent where you lose your beliefs. 2, they say that, oh, it's necessary for you to coagulate with these people in order for you to have political will. We think that from our side, we already proved that it is very possible for you to interact with the general community without necessarily like diluting your own religion. For example, Christians can always do things like community outreaches, which they've always done. They can do things like building schools and community projects, or even converging within social gatherings to say these are the common issues we face as a people, not necessarily relying on religion. We don't think that the meeting point here has to be religion, particularly when religion has certain things that it opts for that we don't think they should have there. On the final thing on the significance and symbolism, we think the only reason why we now have to have so many campaigns of Jesus is the reason for the season is because there has been so much suppression of that by the fact that other people are in charge of it. For example, out of the many social organizations that exist now, but it looks like is most of them propagating the ideology of the Easter Bunny and things largely associated with that, rather than putting anything that necessarily has to do with Jesus. Why is it even more problematic? Because the amount of power you have to say Jesus is the reason for the season is significantly less than the amount of power that the generality of media has to push ideology of the Easter Bunny and the rest of that. What it means is that the significance that they seek to protect is one that you ultimately lose in your world, or you constantly have to be in a battle of pushing that this thing exists and that you have an alternative world. I'm not taking you now, DSM, no worries. With time day. Let's talk about what exactly we say from CG and why it's important to this debate. 1, on the ideology of religious authorities, and I think that DSM falls into this trap in the second case. It says that there's a multiplicity within religion. What you ultimately do is that religion falls into this horrible context where it becomes a conversation of who can secularize the most in order to attract the most people from outside. Here's the problem with secularization. Secularization is very much pointless in a world where you ultimately exist to be like someone else. What does it mean? If you say that the basis upon which you get new people into your religion is by secularizing, it means you can only keep them there by secularizing too. We think that this idea of buy-in is something that is overbloated. The fact that I come around on Sundays because I want to catch, or like on Christmas Day because I want to catch sweet and eat food from Father Christmas, says nothing about my commitment to religion. This is why you have significant things like a large number of people showing up to Christian gatherings in some instances during Christmas, but never showing up again. Why? Because it doesn't keep them there. Two, because secularism is not going to be continued. What you have in your world, where this continues to be pervasive, is that people have to constantly secularize in order to keep them there. But here's the problem with secularizing. It means that pastors and preachers lose their identity as religious authorities and more or less become like performers in concert shows and the rest of these things. The problematic nature of that is that it ultimately means that the ability to teach spiritual doctrine is largely mitigated by the fact that they have to constantly keep buying, which is why you see, and a harm that exists now is the rise of a lot of secular type churches or youth churches which ultimately preach nothing of the essential values of like Christianity. Anybody can be a Christian. They simply come out and preach things that make almost no sense. But let's talk about conflict within doctrine, right? Nobody should unmute, I beg. Let's talk about conflict within doctrines. What it ultimately means is that the Christian faith becomes constantly like divided by the fact that people are constantly arguing what secularism is too much, what secularism is enough. This is a unique extension from CG. What is the problem here? A house that is divided against itself cannot stand. I'm quoting the Bible for fuck's sake. What it ultimately means is that Christians lose the ability to constantly push for people to join them because there's always the question of who exactly are you? There is no clarity on what exactly it means to be a Christian, particularly when they are so closely associated with secularism. A second level of impact on that here. It means that people who are always going to prioritize secularism, because they're coming here again, all the entire arguments, opposition entire arguments is let's be secular to get people there. It means that these people have less likelihood of even staying there. But two, because this narrative also goes to Christians, Christians are then convinced that there is little difference between the church and the outside world. Why is it equally problematic? It means that there is ultimately higher cases of buyout within your world, where people ultimately act to like go ahead for like secularism because the church has more or less endorsed this thing, give or take. I'll take PI from OO now.
Okay, thank you. We live in a hostile world where secular culture disapproves of Christianity. Christians already have a great incentive to protect
don't
their views.
necessarily think that secular culture disapproves of Christianity. We are not against secular culture accepting Christianity. The conversation we have is the constant infiltration of secular culture into Christianity to the point where Christianity becomes less about pushing values of religion and more about pushing values that are social. Let's talk about what they say. They say that Christianity has some values like, charity, like being peaceful and community and whatever that they push. We think that more importantly, Christianity has a lot of other values that are lost here. What it means is that there is no way that you can differentiate between a Christian meeting and any other meeting that you're having of a bunch of random people or like of secular people because of this thing. Again, we give you the comparison. Within the Islamic religion, there's Ramadan, there's Eid. It doesn't mean that people are then diluting what the meaning of these festivals are or what the meaning of these religious practices are in order to get buy-in. But these people constantly have buy-in. What we say is that the world of opposition is one where they necessarily continue to push for secularism to the point where there is no existence of the church becomes something else. Comparison with OG, one, my partner is able to establish to you how exactly you dilute religious authority in this world. Why? Because there's constantly a conversation about like who is the best person at attracting people. This means that religious priority isn't necessarily on the spiritual message you preach, but it's more or less on the fact that you can draw people through your secular message. Why is it equally more problematic? The long-term sustainability of the Christian movement is then threatened by the fact that there's constant dispute within them. Still says that there's already dispute. We say that this is aggravated by the continued pervasiveness, and our failure to regret it is why it continues to exist. We think that this is a new and unique harm, and one that must be paid attention to because it affects sustainability. Two, we say that for people within the religion, particularly Christian parents, the ability for you to push positive narratives that directly correlate with the religion you want is limited because you always want to please your children in order to make them like feel among of the community, even though you are accepting narratives that are fundamentally flawed against your religion. But two, it means that Christians do not grow up having like true Christian values. They grow up with the most acceptable social thing. Finally, we think that ultimately this creates a world where there is a deviation from the core of religion. People do not opt into religion because it is secular. They opt into religion because ultimately there is a distinct connection, and this weakens the value of religion in their world, as my partner has told you. More importantly, we think that in any world that we have to support, we have to state what exactly is the most important thing. My partner tells you, it looks like you want to have your own normal, peaceful Easter celebration, but you have a world where there's a drunk person making a lot of noise and the rest of those things. If we bring in secular people to be part of Christian affairs, without necessarily giving them the socialization of Christianity first, which you have no ability to do in the first place, it means that they ultimately disrupt these practices, or they are more likely to have things that are greatly negative upon the Christian body in general, probably CG.
The panel would like to thank the government whip for his speech. And now I'd like to welcome the last speaker of this finals debate, that is the opposition whip. You're welcome to the floor. Opposition whip, are you ready to give your speech? DSM, kindly, where's your partner? Yeah, Henry, where is he? Pardon?
Henry, are you there? He's on the call.
What?
Henry. Jesus.
I'll give you 2 minutes to just call him quickly so that he can give his speech. Just 2
WhatsApp
minutes.
is not responding. Henry, are you here?
Anyone else who knows Henry, who has his personal phone number, just call him and tell him to give speech.
Okay,
Oh, he's there.
he's responding. He's on the call. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. He's server muted. What? I think Reagan, you should be able to handle that issue of server mute, when being server muted.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Okay, yeah, you're audible.
Alright. So, hi, my name is Henry. If you have a POI, please just throw it in the chat space. I don't accept POIs that are unmuted, so don't you ever dare unmute. Shall have a problem. So, yeah, I think that's generally it. Shout out to my partner because he has taught me so much in these few days. Yeah, so he's a really amazing guy. And shout out to my young daughter who has come to watch these finals. Samarit High, and shout out to my sweetest mom in Jeremiah. She's amazing. Yeah, shout out to all my friends and everyone. So yeah, let's win this. So I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. So government whip has knocked out their side from the entire debate. Reason being, according to them, the debate is about religious institutions, going on podiums and saying it is very okay for your counterparts and your friends to go and drink. That's not the debate. This is the debate, and this is why they're out, and this is why Dominic's member speech is the best in the round. The debate is about, should we appreciate a world where when Christian families are going to church to accept or to acknowledge Easter, Christian preach and get preachings about the love of God and everything, why then, and should we then be okay with, as that is happening, on the other side there are people who believe it's okay to go and drink? Should we accept all these things to happen, or should we accept only one dimension of this debate to happen? That was the debate clearly. So CG is out. The second thing is that they lost this debate when they, and I'm starting on engagements now. Closing government loses the debate when they come out and say that, oh, we believe that there are other values that Christianity can teach. So according to closing government, the values of tolerance, the values of having to understand other individuals and their perspectives, dealing with them, do not matter to them. That means that at the end of the day, Christianity, some levels of Christianity values do not apply to them. So according to closing government, they regret a world where particular individuals don't get to learn and accept and live with some values. We think people learn from experiences. Christians grow from such experiences. The fact that you want to then cuff these people and take these experiences from them becomes very much toxic. Like just on basic understanding of the motion alone, closing government is out. But I'm going to engage them further. Let me first deal with opening government. So opening government argues the idea of legitimacy, and this is where they go wrong completely. They say our religion is a rigid religion. We don't give two shits. Sorry about that shit. We don't give two shits about what individuals care about our religion. If they don't want to abide with us, they should go off the rails. There are two, and I want to respond to this in two ways. One, this legitimacy will never stand because legitimacy is based on what people accept for it to be legitimate. So if the vast majority of people that you are talking about are being left out of your system, then your religion might most likely not be legitimate because these people can always go out and vote out your religion in existence. We think people have that much kind of power. But then secondly, I think this is also something that hasn't been engaged with any of the government benches. Understand the type of Christians that we have today also engage in these activities of secularism. So if you say that people who are not engaging in this secularism should go out, then that means that half the church of that is sit for this Easter or sit in Easter for service should also opt out of Christianity in itself. Because you are saying that when they go to bars after going to church, they should not be Christians anymore. That kind of world is a world that we tell you include and exclude all of these people because you don't want to be tolerant to the simple things and the simple mistakes that they do. Christians are human beings. They're not robots. They are not entirely perfect. But the fact that religion and Christianity can be able to accommodate these people and accept their mistakes and try to correct them in that direction, it becomes worse. Of government as a whole, this is where they lose out completely from the debate before I move on to my other issues at the end of the day. You come out and say that we believe that we should preach Christianity in itself and these ideas of Santa Claus. And this is the strongest characterization and ideology coming from both CG and OG. They say that the misconception of things like Santa Claus and Christmas, the Easter Bunny and all these things are what making religion very toxic. We think and pose it from closing opposition. It is easier to correct particular narratives that are not in check than to write a whole new narrative in someone's head. We think the first level of acceptance that they do get of what Christmas is, it is easier for you to change that perception that they have of Christmas than it is hard for you, and 2 times harder for you to go and introduce a whole new concept to these particular individuals. We pose it from closing opposition that we don't regret our world because it is better to then even achieve those particular benefits that happen in that particular world. So they are out completely on engagement. So what does my partner tell, and why is this the best extension? Why is the best extension in the round? What does Dominic tell you in his speech? Dominic tells you something very simple here. He tells you about the multi-ethnicity and how the religion in itself is diverse. There are very many people who have diverse religions. And let me engage on this also on first level. When we tell you that these people are very many, and these people come and say, and this is something very important, and this is what wins us the debate when it came from my member of opposition. For you to come and claim everything that OG and CG claims, you then have to assume that there is 100% unity in the Christian community. But due to human nature and different ideologies and different ways in which people perceive Christianity or interpret the Bible or interpret what Christian is, ultimately at the end of the day, people ultimately then become different. So even when you wipe out the whole world of secularism, Christianity in itself is a different phenomenon altogether. That means that at the end of the day, you have to accept those differences and the way that they accept. I'm not taking CG because you deliberately locked us out of the debate, thinking you're going to win it by not engaging us. So I'm not engaging you. Let's move on with the debate, right? So what we tell you at the end of the day is that you need to have that level of acceptance. We understand and why it becomes to be a good Christian, right? So being a good Christian, they say that you're going to become a good Christian. We tell them from like our extension that you're going to become a better Christian. Okay, Dominic says I can tell them so. Okay, good. You shoot what's itching you.
So the debate can never be about how tolerating people during these holidays, because these people already do that even without Christian holidays. It's about making Christian holidays pervasive. You're contextually out of the debate. Engage it like the other people in the debate.
Exactly now. So first of all, this is why you lose from this POI. It's that these holidays don't occasionally happen. So why should you exclude these individuals if there's no exclusive harm that is going to come from someone enjoying this day once in a month or once every 3 months, right? So you then also consider in your submission that is not necessarily that this doesn't have that much impact if you regret it. So even we don't regret it because even then, in those 3 months, we don't think that anything is going to be changed at the end of the day. We think even then in that POI, you just shoot yourself in the foot. You're out on that first level. But secondly, we are also still in the debate because we then tell you that these things
are supposed to be an everyday thing. Even on Christmas, you must learn to be tolerant. Unless CG wants to assume that tolerance should not be a Christian value and should not also be celebrated and applied on a day like this. They are out on all those levels. So let's move on to the other debate at the end of that day. So we tell you, becomes a good Christian on our extension. We tell you that being a good Christian is not just about it. Let's understand something very important here. I mean, time is already done. So OG never took a POI notice, a lack of engagement from OG. But let's move on. We tell you that you have to get knowledge, right? Understand why being a better Christian, when you have to learn love, sit with these people at the table. We never say that you don't become not a Christian if you don't do tolerance. We tell you you become a better Christian in our world if you learn to tolerate these individuals. We tell you you become a self-actualized Christian who is actually maximizing all the values, becoming a better Christian. Secondly, you get audience. That means that these people actually want to listen to you because they are comfortable with you. Another thing here is that understand they tell you about community outreach and how they can impact society and other things. You can never do all these things that OG and CG gives you in a counterfactual if people don't like you in the first place. The way people like you is how you accept them and interconnect with them. Where our station is different from what Opening Operation presents. Opening Operation just presents preaching. We tell you from our end and in nuanced level why it is important to have those particular ideologies, even in guise of when you don't want to preach. Them existing alone, even without having any purpose for them, why it becomes very much important. So understand why we win from closing opposition. We engage them and tell them at best level that for you to do anything, you need these people for legitimacy, for inclusivity, for sensitization of children. This debate is what that was particularly about. We win from closing opposition. Thank you so much, Dominic. It's been a wonderful ride. We win from closing up. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the speaker for his speech. I'd like to bring this debate to an end. I'd like to thank all speakers for their speeches. It's been an honor to judge this debate. And with that said, with the rest of the panel, we head off to deliberate.